if you smell what the rock is cooking. You guys didn't see it, but I just raised my eyebrow, or tried to anyway. Can't really control the right side of my face. Too much Botox from all this sick ad revenue, so yeah. Life's pretty hard. Anyway, Dwayne GOR-ROK Johnson and the Lizardmen are finna beat down some Norscans today. We got Horned Ones handing out back scratches with their own McQueedles. We've got Throgg and the Beasts of Wintertooth trolling around. And we've got a horde of screaming half-naked barbarian dudes. Sounds like a good time to me. So for the Lizardmen of Itza, the Great White Lizard has his Rock of Itza, Shield of Eons, and Mace of Ulamak. Pretty standard fare. You usually want to go fully kitted out with him because he's not super expensive. And that turns him into a terrifying duelist and one of the tankier footlords in Mortal Empires. Dude can get up to 160 armor and like 90 melee defense, which is pretty smexual. Lets him face tank entire horde solo and give him some time for the Razordon hunting pack at the back of the map to destroy stuff. Amaxon barbs, which I'm not gonna lie, I've kind of been impressed with recently. I think I wrote them off after launch because they were really bad when their DLC first came out, but after a few tweaks on CA's end, they're really not atrocious. A lot of fun to use, with a nasty AP split from range as well. Beyond them are the Paco Pot cohort, immune to Psych and Vanguard Cold Ones, you know them well, and some Horned Ones hiding out in the woods on the left flank. And I really like this move. It's a classic Total War strat. Players tend to keep their cav together, so if you show one out in the open, occasionally your opponent will think, oh, that's all the cav he has. Makes it a bit more likely you get an ambush off, and I do love Horned Ones. They're an awesome addition to the Lizardmen roster. Ancient Salamander in the front ranks, good for blasting through infantry and trolls. Clearly not a meta build here, just a mess around game from the looks of it, but frankly, I think those kind of games can often be more fun. Achilles is playing as the Beast of Wintertooth. He's been my friend through many dangers. Super good Napoleon and historical Total War player. More recently, he's been learning Warhammer 2 while scrimming Klaxon Soothsayer and a bunch of other top tier players. Talk about jumping feet first into hell, but it's a good way to learn very quickly when you're playing very good people, so he's going for a wide Marauder core here, a Lore of Metalcaster with Plague of Rust and Final Transmutation, Javelins, Throwing Axes, Throgg the Troll King, flanked by 2 Ice Trolls, the Beasts of Tashnar, 2 Throwing Axes, and we're gonna get this thing popping off with some skirmish play early. So the nice thing about the Amaxon Barb is that against Throwing Axes anyway, they have the range to completely zone them out, and we're gonna see it right here. They can deal a tremendous amount of damage with their opening volley. So spines on the back of their tails, they're gonna whip their hair back and forth, and it's gonna get nasty for these Marauder cav. They are not going to enjoy those opening volleys, and the Ancient Salamander spitting super hot fire. Not quite as crazy as it used to be, but it can still easily jib like 15, 20 infantry models a shot, which is a solid option for burninating the countryside and burninating the peasants before they ever get a taste of CQB. Skirmish mode is not on for these Marauder cav. There used to be some older Total War games where skirmish mode was actually trash. I think that habit has kind of carried over for Achilles, but yeah, you generally want skirmish mode on for Marauder cav, especially throwing axes, because they have to basically get into charge range to throw, so it's a bit risky to not have it on, and the AI will always be able to move your unit faster than the human brain can respond. It's just the way of things. Another nasty shot into the center of these Marauders as they come up, and great way to thin out the hordes, man. The unwashed masses, the filthy barbarians are getting torn up when it actually lands a shot. Occasionally, Ancient Sally will miss some shots. That can be unfortunate because you don't have too much time before your opponent is able to close into melee. And over here, we got some awkward dry humping of the Saurus. Yeah, it's a good reason why you should have skirmish mode on, so you don't randomly lose models to infantry that you're getting too close to. They're going to pull away, and meanwhile, the javelins are firing into the Ancient Salamander, but the Scaly Skin should give them enough missile resist to survive that kind of pressure. Yeah, this is where you really want to have skirmish mode on. Horned Ones ambush coming out of the forest, and a full surround Paco Poc are going to finish them off from behind, and Raptors will eat well today. Man, that's brutal. If you're coming from previous historical Total War games, you might have a bad perception of what skirmish mode offers. There were a lot of previous Total War games that would get your stuff killed when you had it on. Warhammer is not the same. Skirmish mode is actually really good, and he could have used it there. The cohort of Sotek are getting run over by a huge horde of doggos, of trolls, and Plague of Rust just went on GOR-ROK. Now, things are going to get super interesting here because all GOR-ROK's buffs are popped, and he's fighting completely by himself. I mean, those cohort of Sotek are not going to be around for very long, and they're really not going to protect him from any damage from Throgg or the trolls whatsoever. Fully surrounded, Rock of Itza, Shield of Eons, everything popped, and he's just going to tank it out and try to survive and hold it down while the Amaxon Barb fires into the Ice Trolls and into the rest of the dog pack. On this side, the Beasts of Tashnar are munching on the Skink Beastcaster, but they'll quickly pull away from that engagement. Only finished off one of the Marauder Cav units, so hardly catastrophic, but obviously you'd like to have your throwing axes as you go into the mid and late stages of a battle. Throgg is going to try his best to beat up on GOR-ROK, but he gets absolutely insane stats when all his stuff is popped. And now the trolls are just kind of doing the little jig, they're getting jiggy with it, man. They're hanging out with the Saurus and they're smashing through them, but the Amaxon Barb are seriously super good with their high AP, and a couple volleys from them is enough to round off one of those units. Saurus on this side got completely outflanked, and GOR-ROK still styling on the infantry as Flock of Doom Overcast smacks a huge portion of the Norscan battle line. But it's a war for the winds of magic. Transformation of Kadon and Final Transmutation going off from both sides, and GOR-ROK is beginning to feel a little bit icky about this whole situation. The Amaxon Barbs and Ancient Salamanders are trying to support him, but there are so many AP troops beating up on him, and Throgg, even though he's designed to be fighting large monsters, he has so much damage that fighting infantry is not really a problem for him, and GOR-ROK is definitely beginning to feel those effects. But the Paco Pot cohort and the Horde ones are coming back now, and their cavalry charges could maybe shift the tide here. GOR-ROK might die in that duel if he's not careful, though, and he has just routed off Horde ones and Paco Pot cohort running down the Doggos, and Amaxon Barb still safe in the pocket in the back of the map alongside that Skink Beastcaster. And Wintertooth has a nice firing line going at the moment. They're really reaping a terrible toll in and amongst these unshielded Saurus who are beating up on the Marauders in melee, but they'll quickly feel the effects of all that ranged firepower. Throgg is a little bit isolated as the Horde ones charge in and run over a bunch more of this Marauder infantry, and this is probably a good time for Norsca to start thinking about playing the kite game. They still have some Marauder Cav, they still have plenty of mobility, they've got a ton of Javelin throwers as well. Kite back, move backwards, get some space, and begin focusing on the mobile threats from the Lizardmen. Paco Pot cohort and Horde ones are still alive, which will be a big problem for Norsca if they're not careful, and Throgg has routed off, but he has some units around that might be able to block charges, and obviously he'll be regenning this whole time as well. Brutal frontal charge from the Ice Trolls and the Paco Pot cohort. We're seeing Raptors and a bunch of Trolls going at it in melee. We're going full fisticuffs here, and the Ice Trolls, well, they were gotten the better of there. Weren't many of them left anyway, but they just got completely run over. Really weird unit. Ice Trolls are actually very good against factions that rely on dinosaurs and single entities because they have so much mass, and the Frostbite effect is such a strong contact effect as well. But in this situation, the Amaxon Barb really tore them a new butthole, and then the cavalry was able to run them down. So all of those trolls are off the map, but Throgg should be able to come back into the fight. The second transformation of Kadon Manticore dealing with some of the Marauder Jav Cav, and more throwing axes arcing in, and it looks like the Paco Pot cohort might finally fall soon. On this side, there's less cavalry. It's mostly about these Jav throwers. There are 5 cohort of Sotek Skinks left, and the Refuse to Die has been popped. Brave little boys fighting to the end, but they'll soon die, I think. Saurus have routed, Amaxon Barb are on the hunt, and the Ancient Salamander still has a few more lava globules to spew, I guess is the best way to put it. My favorite thing about both the Ancient Sally and the Hunting Pack units is how versatile they are. All about good positioning and micro, but they can also hunt, and they'll start eating you while you're still alive. Pretty good way to get a sense of scale in the Warhammer world, too. These things are gigantic and terrifying. So was that shot from the Ancient Sally, my god. Just jibbed like 15 javelin throwers. And these guys are just covered head to toe in barbs and slashing claws and razor sharp teeth. And they're peons compared to the big boys of the setting. So it's crazy to think about the sense of scale in Warhammer. Horde ones also on the hunt on the other side of the battlefield. Huge charge into the Marauders, gonna bowl them over, and they're well over 100 kills at this point. But the Norskins have gotten their act together. They're ready to go back in. Both sides are completely tattered, and a final transmutation coming down, going to hit the Ancient Salamander and GOR-ROK, the Great White Lizard, who has returned from his little jog away from Throgg. Going in, we got a duel. The Ancient Salamander coming in with the RKO out of nowhere, dropping the steel chair, smacking him in the back of the head. And remember, he has flaming damage. So this is one of those situations where, yeah, it might get a little bit bad for Throgg, but he's such a beast in melee and he's regenerating this whole time. Honestly, Wintertooth should probably be pulling Throgg away here. I like the idea of going after GOR-ROK, but I think he gets more value by just letting Throgg get some more HP back, more regen, and cycle charge. He's very good at doing that. He has high charge bonus, but he still might be able to kill GOR-ROK here. And the Ancient Salamander has no harmonic convergence or any buff spells to get his melee attack up. Still, he did rout. GOR-ROK is about to rout. The javelins are going to kill him off. Both lords are about to disappear, but Wintertooth needs theirs more. If Throgg dies here, it's going to be really hard to come back. The Amaxon Barbs are fighting Marauder Cav on the other side. GOR-ROK will drop to a bunch of javelins in the back of his head. He's dead. Throgg has not shattered yet, and he's getting regen, and he managed to get blocked. The Ancient Salamander is getting dragged down. Javelins are beginning to rout, though. Managed to make it into melee terror rout, and as the Horned Ones come in, Army Losses kicks in. That will be the end of the battle. So one of the things about trolls is that to get the most value out of them, you really kind of want to use them like Skin Wolves. You want to use them in a cycle charging role, generally speaking. Now, if you're in a great infantry engagement and you're smashing stuff, then you don't have to worry about it. The regen should keep them in the fight as long as they're near their lord, and they were with Throgg. But they were getting torn up by the Amaxon Barb, which ended up with more than 80 kills, which is pretty crazy. That's the most I've seen on Amaxon Barb in a long-ass time, and a lot of that was on really high-value stuff. On Throgg, on the Ice Troll. So you want to make sure that you are disengaging if you're starting to get focus fire down. You don't want to just leave them in there to get shattered. And one of the Ice Troll units actually did get completely shattered under the weight of all those barbs that were getting thrown their way. The Amaxon Barbs, the Horde ones especially, 2 chevrons, well over 150 kills, and the Ancient Salamander, all 3 interesting units here performed admirably. They were absolutely fantastic, and it really all started with the Horde ones getting that ambush off on the throwing axes. Killed off 1 unit and severely damaged another, and that's a lot of AP that would have been really useful for dealing with the armored cavalry and with the Ancient Salamander itself. GOR-ROK was also very impressive that game. It's kind of what he does. I mean, he didn't do a whole lot of killing, even though he has a bunch of ways to get his weapon strength and his melee attack value up. He's really just about tanking, and when you get 160 armor, something like Plague of Rust, even if you overcast it for the minus 60 armor, not really gonna matter. He's still gonna have 100 armor, which is still super tanky, and he still has a 60 melee defense with Shield of Eons and everything else. And if you bring Stand Your Ground, it gets even higher. So very hard to chunk through him, and he pretty much held down an entire flank by himself while the Amaxon Barb fired in. Just a mess around game, nothing too serious there, but definitely enjoyed it. Thank you to Achilles for joining me, and I'll see you all in the next one. Peace out.